And hello, and welcome to tonight's Getting Tune. I'm Michael Gracia, as always, and I already got some people viewing and commenting. So thank you. I haven't even introduced anyone yet, so this is cool. I got a really great show tonight. A lot of people, actually, everyone but one has already been on the show. Everybody is really interesting. There's more I want to talk about. I'm sure I'm going to bring them on again at some point, whether they're individuals or some as groups. But let's just bring them on. Tonight, I got a bunch of illustrators, cartoonists, whatever term you want to use for them. Got an editor here, a writer. We got everything. So let's bring on everybody. First, we're going to bring on Ed Steckley, who has worked for Mad Magazine, Abrams Books, and is in the world of advertising. So, hello, Ed.
Nice to meet you.
Hello. Next up, we got Roger Phillips of the Gray Zone comic.
Hey, Mike.
How you doing, Roger?
Good to see you again.
You too. Then we got Francis Bonnet, who I apologize right now for spelling his name wrong in the in the ad. I just noticed I gave him one N. It's two N's. I apologize, but he does one of my favorite strips, Suburban Fairy Tales. So let's bring him on.
How you doing?
Hello, Francis. I apologize.
No worries. It's still pronounced the same.
Yeah. Okay. Next up is Tim Jones from Sour Grapes, the comic strip, which was been on before. Great strip.
Thank you.
Also, another previous guest, Don Chin. Hello, Don.
Hey, everyone.
Parody Press.
Hey, Don.
He's he was the co-creator of the Adolescent Radioactive, Black Belt Hamsters, X-Farce, and other comics. And last but not least, we got Brad Perry of Pirate Mike Comics. Hi, Brad.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. We got a little lag on you, but that's okay. So we've got a few comments already. Let's just go over. We got Roger Crownover, is that how you say it? Or Cronover? I apologize. He's got what's today's topic. He's got a few things. Actually, I got one of my old college students watching saying hi, Professor. So hello, Mel. And Joe Ryan, one of our regular viewers, he's saying hello to the Gray Zone comic. And Bobby says Steckley. So,
Hi, Bob.
So before we begin, I just want to make sure everyone's aware that down at the bottom of here is everybody's Instagram handle, and this is the way to get in touch with them, all through Instagram. And what I wanted to do tonight was to bring on a bunch of people who are very knowledgeable about the cartooning industry, who are knowledgeable about comics. Okay. And but I wanted to kind of just talk about what got everyone into it. I mean, it's such I don't want to call it a small industry, but everyone seems to know each other, but there's a lot of us doing it, and there's so many different reasons why we do it, the type of work we do. Everyone here does different type of work, and I just wanted to kind of have a chat. You guys, we're going to take questions from the audience. You guys can ask each other questions. I'll ask you guys questions. And I think we need to get this out of the way. And Bob asks, what's with Steckley's robotic arm?
Well, there's a simple answer to that. I draw a lot. And I learned that having a mere mortal's appendage wasn't going to cut it. Then I saw this movie a couple years ago. It's called Iron Man. Look it up. That's the way to do it. That guy is whatever that fella's name is. He was really onto something. So I had this built, and it actually makes it so I can't move at all. So I think I need to get on to the Mach 2. But until then, it looks really cool.
All right. Yes, I actually agree. It does look pretty cool.
I should actually say, yeah, I broke my arm. I busted my arm.
Yeah. You've already told the story like 3 or 4 times backstage as people came on, so you must be tired of telling the story already.
Oh, I love the sympathy.
We're tired of hearing about it.
Yeah.
You guys, wait. I hate you guys. There we go.
So I think, before we get into talking with you guys, since I really want you guys to do the talking, and I'm just kind of gonna moderate, ask some questions as we go on. I'm just going to talk a little bit quickly so you guys could know what got me into cartooning. Definitely it started with animation, cartoons. I think as a kid, that's our first introduction to a lot of people for cartoons. Growing up on Hanna-Barbera, McGill Gorilla, stuff like that. That was the things I love. All watching reruns, Looney Tunes, everything like that. And then I got into the newspaper strips and eventually led into comic books. So I've read everything. The reason, though, I love comics, cartooning, everything in general like that, is because I feel you're just limited to your imagination and skill with a pencil. So if you can, if you can think it, imagine it, and you can draw it, you can go to that place. You can tell that story. So why don't we go one by one down the line? And if it's not comics that got you into art like me, it was animation that brought me into the world. And I have animated. I have drawn comics. I have done graphic design. I've worked in video editing, puppetry. I've worked in a variety of fields that are all creative and all art. So we'll see about so my stuff just led me to different places just because I liked cartoons as a kid and I drew, and I've been working professionally since I was 18. So why don't we go down the line and you want to start? Ed, you want to start?
Sure.
Roger will just go down the line I see on the screen here.
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm right next to you, Mike.
Yes, the way I see it, though, it's you, Roger, Francis, and then a bottom row. So I don't know if you see it the same way as me.
This is in no particular order, clearly.
Okay.
Actually, yeah, I get asked that a lot. How did you get started? And I've never answered it seriously. I'm about to start now. I was always drawing as a kid, and that never went away. And it got to a point when I started to have to find a way to make a living, probably 11 or so. And I figured maybe if I could just keep drawing somehow, I would kind of make that work. And to be serious, I was raised in a family that was very supportive. And they said, "You want to draw for a living? All right, go ahead, make it happen." So I did. But I started out drawing in theme parks, Midwest, and I was always a big fan of Mad Magazine. Still am. Can't tell by my studio. I've got kind of a birth defect. And caricatures in Mad was something that I always gravitated towards. And I started drawing caricatures, and I did that for the next almost 20 years in theme parks. And I would draw all summer at theme parks, got good at it, eventually trained people, and I just got to a point where, because I would use this summer drawing to support me in the off season, where I would build up my illustration career, and I would draw for whoever would pay me. So I did comic books. I worked with small magazines. The only comic books I did were for a company called Slave Labor Graphics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember them.
Dan Vito.
Not to brag. Dan did he, or what was his name? Dan
Vito.
Dan Vito. Yep. Dan Vito and a guy named Craig Pate gave me my first published work, and they were terrible. I didn't know what I was doing. Not much has changed since then. I'm better at faking it now. But Murder Can Be Fun comics. Yeah, that was fun. I still have them all. And I just did that, and I just did all the mailings and started to mail postcards and all that. Those were the days when you had to do that. And eventually just kind of got job after job, more and more magazines. Then I got into Craig.
All right.
Yeah, some lovely work for crack. And that eventually went mad. And somewhere in the middle there, I got into advertising. So I'm an advertising illustrator. And I work on ad campaigns. I flesh out and design ad campaigns for TV, print, national, international. Some of it's very dry, some of it's fun, some of it's cool, some of it's not. Kind of like this group. And and a couple years ago, I've been always good at not pigeonholing myself to one thing. So I was a lot of the opportunities that I've gotten were just kind of doors that opened that I went, oh, I'll go through that door. I'm now doing children's books. I'm on my third one right now. Rube Goldberg's Simple Normal Humdrum School Day came out a couple years ago. I just finished the follow-up, and now I'm on a series of kids middle reader books where I'm illustrating the stories. So at a time like 2020, it's good to be under contract for a couple of months. However, when you have your arm chewed off by a window, it's a little bit weirder to be under contract because they can't do anything. So, yeah, everything's going to come back to me and this because that's what I'm angry about. So, yeah, that's my story, and that was about 3 times as long as it needed to be.
It's okay. It was a good story. I always enjoy hearing about
Why we're here.
backgrounds here. And I want to say I didn't know. I've spoken to you before, and you've told me some of the stuff you've worked on. I didn't know you worked on Cracked. I was a huge fan of that magazine as a kid.
Yeah, I don't usually tell people that unless I've had about 8 of these.
I actually have a few of my issues somewhere. I'm going to have to go and see if I have anything you've worked on.
No, you don't have to do that. I actually Cracked. Enough time has passed where I can say it. I got no art direction. I got nothing. They gave me a script and I turned it in. I had to do the lettering. I had to do the balloons. I had to do the layout, everything. And it was interesting. You know, So don't look. You don't need to go look those up. Every time I move, I have a box of all this magazines crap I've worked on. I find the box and I look through it. And I go, these haven't gotten any better over time. So, yeah.
All right, let's move on to Roger. Roger, tell us a little bit about what inspired you to get into the cartoon art world.
Well, like Mr. Steckley, I'm a big fan of Mad Magazine, and I read it, very early on. And then my hero back then was Don Martin. I don't know if you guys remember him.
Oh yeah.
So I love the sound effects and his style. So I really love that. And of course, Al Jaffe. And so I would copy, blatantly copy these things as a 7-year-old and paste them all over my bedroom. And then my parents said, "Oh, looks like that's what you're going to go into." And so I had, supportive parents as well, and grew up on the animation that you mentioned. I understand that the co-creator of Scooby-Doo passed away a few days ago.
Yes. Was it Spears? I don't remember if it was Ruby or Spears.
I think it was Spears.
Spears. Yeah, I haven't been on social media recently. Although I did go on, and I don't know if you guys have seen this, and I'm going to interrupt just for a moment. Did you see that there? I don't know when it's going to happen, but Hagar the Horrible is getting a sitcom, like a 3D puppet from the Henson Company. They're going to be doing like a situation. I thought that was pretty interesting. Wonder how that'll go.
I'm all for that.
Yeah, I love Hagar. So, anyway, let's continue with Roger. Sorry.
That's okay. So, and then I did that, throughout my childhood. And then I moved on to more of an illustration type of career path. My first job was working for a kids software company, in the early days of computers. So, 16 colors. And I remember I had a job interview, and it was like, show us what you can do. So this is on an Apple II GS. And he said, "We need you to draw a sad cow." And I said, "Okay." So I was like they said, "Okay, you're hired. The cow looks sad, so welcome aboard." So that was my introduction to getting paid for my work. And that was about 4 years, and that was terrific. That was a lot of fun. So combining animation with cartoon was it's a dream come true. And then 20 years passed, and then I said, I'm retired now, and I want to be a cartoonist. And I needed a subject. So my father, for whatever reason, he loved to watch Ancient Aliens and all these conspiracy theory type of shows and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And he said, what about aliens? And I said, okay, I'll do that. And to be honest, I'm not so good with repeating a particular character. So if you're drawing Heathcliff over and over and over again, I'm not so good at that repetitive, of drawing it consistently. I mean, aliens are quite simple, so I feel comfortable, doing them. And then after 10 years, I'm in that groove where I can just crank them out, pursuing it, and going along that path, and slowly building, an audience online, and learning the intricacies of what the newest social media is, and trying to put it out there, and seeing some of my work, being shared is always a nice thing. But I noticed many times they cut off the name and copyright information.
Oh man.
And then sometimes it makes its way across the whole globe, and then it looks like, I don't know if when we were kids and they made a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy, and that's what it looks like by the end of the, by the time it's rotated all around the world. So that was kind of flattering and insulting at the same time to see it moved around like that. And some people have taken to translating in their native tongues, and so that was kind of a neat feeling. And what a way to reach people, is through social media. It looked, print is very, it's kind of on its way out, I think, and now this is the medium to be used. And an older guy like me trying to make it, transition into this digital world is, challenging and interesting at the same time.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to Francis.
So, what inspired me to become a cartoonist?
What did you like as a kid? Why did you want to get into cartooning?
So I remember I was very, very young, probably got to be like 6 or 7 years old, and around the corner from my house, a comic book store opened up. So here I am, this kid, you have no money, but I'm like, oh, what is this thing? And so, I didn't have to leave my block. I would just go, right around the corner and go into this comic book store, and he had the 25-cent comics, like all, the junk stuff that wasn't worth anything. And, 25 cents, I mean, that's kind of affordable for a 7-year-old. So, I would get, whatever, Superman and Batman. I was a big DC fan, so I get a lot of those comics. And then pretty much like right next to that comic book store was a used bookstore. And so, I go from one to the other, and that's kind of just how I just found this love for comics, is that it was there. And as a kid, you're kind of drawn to the, the cool fight sequences and the action and the stories. The used bookstore had a lot of Peanuts books, the Fawcett, the old Fawcett ones.
Oh yeah.
So, and those were also, those like 50 cents. So I'd buy those and I'd read them. Like, I want to do this. This is what I want to do. What I loved about Peanuts was just the humor, the simplicity. And so shortly after, I started just drawing my own comics in elementary school and showing them to my friends, and just something that never died. It's just something that I've always like I wake up every day and I'm like, okay, I have these ideas. I have to write them down. It's like you have to do it. It's like, I don't have a choice. It's something that, like I have to breathe. So I have to write and draw comics.
Yeah.
So, I've been working on Suburban Fairy Tales for 15 years now. Yeah. So it's been in print, it's online, but the comic actually opened up some doors for me, like with Archie Comics, and I've done some gag writing for comics like Rhymes with Orange. So just having that and having like a consistent output of material like that has, really been able to get me other work too. But my love is doing my own thing in addition to the other stuff, Yeah,
that's great. That's great. And before Suburban Fairy Tales, I know you had a few other strips that you did, and you did them for a while too, correct?
So yeah, I did a comic strip called Crunchy, about it was crazy turtle, and he's a pet turtle for this little girl. I don't know. I was crazy for thinking up that idea. But I did that for a couple of years. I think it was like 2 years, 3 years that I did that. But I did get an idea for Suburban Fairy Tales from Crunchy. And then I did a comic strip called Made to Malfunction, which was more sci-fi. So it was kind of like sci-fi comedy. So it was kind of like Futurama, but before Futurama was a thing. I think it was before Futurama. I don't know. When did Futurama come out? Does anybody remember?
Oh, late 90s, right? No, mid. I don't remember.
All right, so then it was a blatant ripoff of Futurama.
Okay.
Not after Futurama.
All right, we'll move on in a second. I just want to say hi to Mike. I always say your last name wrong. Sorry, it's Wilkie, I believe.
Wilkie.
Roger says yes to Mad's Don Martin, who I couldn't agree more. My first introduction to Mad actually was I was 8 years old. I was in the hospital, and and my father's secretary gave some gifts to me, and in there was a Mad magazine, and I fell in love with Sergio's work, and that was she gave me a drawing pad, things to cheer me up, and that Mad was in there, and I thought that was the greatest thing. But Joe Wass is watching. He says Chester Gould couldn't draw a better rogues gallery than his crew.
Thanks,
Hey,
Joe.
Joe, you troublemaker.
So anyway, let's move on to Brad. All right. And by the way, everyone watching, thanks. And Kevin Anders says gives a smiley face. So hello, everyone watching, thanks. Brad, your turn.
Yeah, well, thanks. Let's see. I got started with comics because I grew up in the Chicago area, and they had a Channel 44 TV station, and they ran the horrible 1966 Marvel superheroes cartoons.
I love those.
Where they the actual comic book, they just slapped it on some celluloid and ran it in front of the camera. That's a cartoon, son. And I'll tell you, that's how. And then my favorite was Iron Man. And it was Don Heck's artwork that really affected me. His pen line, and specifically, I can even name the issue now. It was the cartoon that was based on Tales of Suspense number 45, The Icy Fingers of Jack Frost, who I found to be a completely compelling villain as a kid, and I still do. Let's see. After that, my dad started bringing home comic books when he was going to night school at the time, so he'd stop at a 7-Eleven. He'd bring home comic books. He brought me home an Iron Man comic book, Iron Man number 98. And so I was kind of owned by superhero comics at that point. I did read daily comics. I shouldn't say daily comics. I read the Sunday comics because the goofy suburban paper out there was called the Daily Herald. And they ran like Born Loser, Doc Smock, Motley's Crew, like the last vestiges of Mutt and Jeff. What else? Red Eye. They ran Pat Brady's first strip, Graves Incorporated. So I was getting, and then somehow they got a hold of Bloom County. I don't know, but I was getting a lot of the strips that the Tribune wouldn't have carried or the Sun-Times would have carried. My grandpa was a big Dondi fan. He got the Sun-Times because they had Dondi in it. I was very lucky. My father was a very big Little Abner fan. So comics on both sides of my family were a big deal, but I was really the first Marvel kid. Everybody up to that point, including my uncle, was DC. And to the point that my uncles were of the school that really preferred DC to Jack Kirby, which I with all due respect to everyone at DC at that time, I have a difficult time understanding how anybody could prefer anything to Jack Kirby. So Jack Kirby, I don't think I'm unique in saying that Jack Kirby's artwork broke my brain. His work on Captain America, and then of course my dad. Some of the comics my dad brought home were Kirby's Machine Man, which again blew my mind, and Black Panther, which was like, oh my god, that was just the best.
Wow.
I love that stuff. So I read comic strips, and then of course in '83 Garfield came around, and my cousin and I were Garfield freaks, and we went in the bold direction of starting our own comic strip company at the tender age of 10. It was a wild success, as I like to say. And we called it, creatively enough, Adventure Comics. I'm pretty sure nobody's ever used that one. And after that, I went to school. The arts were pretty much implicitly, kind of impliedly discouraged in my house. We had a lot of artists who did not make a living, and it showed. And they'd had a tough going of it professionally. So after getting a law degree, I decided the next logical conclusion was to start drawing comic strips. And now we're here. So that was that. God bless good lawyers. There are not enough good lawyers and too many lousy ones. But law was not for me as much as my checkbook would have liked it. So now I started doing comic strips, and one year my wife bought me a subscription to Comic Sherpa, the old service on Go Comics, and that was it. After that, I did a couple of more strips that were eminently forgettable and embarrassing, and then I got Pirate Mike out, and after a couple of tries, somebody at Go Comics said, "Hey, let's put this on the main page." So I'm very fortunate now to have Pirate Mike's carried by Go Comics digitally. And I finally, as my fans, the few that are out there will be happy to know, I have finally gotten back to doing new strips after a very long, I'm doing other projects stretch. So that's kind of my story on comics. I really love them. I've always loved them. And I just making them on your own gives you such a much better appreciation for the comics you already love. I would highly recommend doing comics for anybody who has an affection for comics.
Yeah. All right. Before we move on to Don, I just wanted to say Mark Simon made a comment, who is a previous guest, and I need to get him back on to talk about other things. But I know you guys can see the comments, but it just made me laugh. He says, "I'm waiting for a giant gun to pop out of Ed's arm brace."
Mark, you gotta do my door.
All right, now Don, coming up, you aren't actually a cartoonist or an illustrator. You write, but you've also edited. But you have such a passion for comics. So let's talk a little bit about.
I wanted to spring one on you guys because
okay,
I actually do cartoons.
Oh,
actually, I just don't do it very often. But this was something I did back in the '80s called Arrow Man, and
cool.
I was blessed to have a guy named Sam Ray ink me. He kind of took me under his wing, and he was my mentor. And his son William Ray is a very well-known illustrator. He worked on Ren and Stimpy and some Batman and Rain, and now he's like a fine arts guy. But Sam is William's dad, and Sam was working up in my Northern California area, and he found out I was doing a fanzine, and he came along and mentored me, and he did all this great lettering and inking. So I actually do have a cartooning background. I just make more money publishing and editing, and writing is a lot quicker than drawing. And I just kind of economically, I thought, I can write quicker, and I'm not nearly as good as these guys that are coming along to work for me. So I kind of gravitated from wanting to be a cartoonist, and then eventually it came into publishing and editing, and writing was what I felt I was better at. Mm-hmm. But I have a lot of similar stories like these guys, what got me interested. Also a Mad Magazine and Cracked lover, and comic strips, reading the newspapers back in the 60s and 70s. I grew up in Northern California, and so the Sunday Funnies were pretty much my intro to comics and strips. And after that, I think Funny Animals, Richie Rich, Harvey was kind of what I got nurtured on growing up. And then as I got older, superheroes came into play. And junior high school, I just started the collecting bug, and eventually opened up a comic book store. And then I started to get into self-publishing from an early age. And I actually have this is a magazine I did back, like probably when I was in my first or second year of college, called Overload. We did 5 issues of that, and it eventually got picked up by distribution. And then Comics Review, which I think I sent you a graphic of.
Yeah, you sent me some.
Yeah, this was a comic strip compilation that we did back in the early 80s. And I'm a big Bloom County fan as well. And we decided to take a concept and put a month's worth of comic strips in a single book. And so what we did was, rather than having to wait for your newspaper, we basically, take BC and put in 30 strips. And so we had like Bloom County and Garfield, Frank and Ernest, Peanuts, and so forth, and Bloom County in a monthly magazine. And it's actually still going to this day. It's called Comics Review. I think it's probably the longest running strip compilation, but it's mainly adventure strips like Prince Valiant, and a guy named Rick Norwood is the publisher of that. But he took Comics Review, and after I decided I didn't want to do it anymore, he transitioned and made it his long running strip. I mean, he's probably like on issue 400 right now. But anyways, that's kind of my intro.
I got 1 or 2 back there. I know Tarzan's in it and a couple of other.
Yeah.
We'll get back. I think I want to ask a couple of questions about that, but before we move on to Tim, I just want to say hi to Sketch Iworks, who says hi to everybody, and he has a heart with Mad Magazine on it, because who doesn't love Mad?
Obviously.
Even though they're not around. But anyway, let's get to Tim. I know you've been waiting. Last but not least,
Story of my life.
Sour grapes here. Here all week, people.
I just realized looking at my picture here, I have resting bitch face. If you know.
Perfect.
I wonder why my wife looks at me funny. So I've always, when I was a kid, I hated reading books. I had a short attention span. I have a short, terrible comprehension. So I read comics, and I read comics because it was predominantly visual, and I always just latched on to me when I was a kid, and I wanted to draw these characters, because I read comic strips having a short attention span, so it was easier than reading a whole comic book because I'm lazy. And so I just started drawing, and I get I think I told Mike this when he had me on, that I get the Sunday paper and just sit down and just start drawing my favorites right under the comic pages in the Sunday paper. And drawing Garfield and Peanuts is the 2 that I was drawn to, and no pun intended. And so that's pretty much how I started. When I was little, my parents put me in the booster seat, throw me some crayons, and said, "He's the special one of the family. Just let him draw." And
they were right.
And, so that's when I was 15, and so I was always fascinated that seeing these characters like Garfield and Charlie Brown and Snoopy. You mentioned Hagar the Horrible. I always liked all the simple drawings in that. I was always fascinated that I noticed that these characters represented their creators.
Mm-hmm.
And I always wanted that. I always wanted a character of my own that represented me. So fast forward, I decided to just start drawing a comic strip. I started out a comic strip in the high school newspaper, which was sucked, and but it got me started, and I just kind of went on with that. I went to school, and majored in art and still had that in the back of my mind. I just wanted a character, so I was constantly drawing just characters on back of my notebooks and stuff. And finally, just fast forward, I came up with Aesop in my comic strip, like, believe it or not, like over 20 years ago. And he looks great for his age, I think. And so I started with that, put him into sour grapes, and had still have a lot of success. And then it's in almost 30 newspapers now, and I'm self-syndicated. And the strip's become really popular. And Aesop's, getting back to my point, that Aesop's a big part of me. And he's always on my mind, and I have a lot of people tell me that Aesop is me. I'm not sure what they mean by that, but comic strips has become my life, and I'm just happy I been able to do that and keep up with it, especially the world that we're living in now. I've been very lucky that to be in print and online. So that's basically it. And I'm sitting in a booster seat right now, so you can see me. So
Good.
All right. Before we move on, actually, I want to talk to Ed in a moment. But before we move on, I just wanted to share a little story. So I told you when I was 8 years old, I was in the hospital. Everyone here knows I've had medical conditions my whole life. I've had 2 kidney transplants. My life's just a medical mess. And I guess Ed didn't know. I thought we had this conversation. But anyway, when I was 8 years old, that's when we discovered that I had a kidney disease. And that's when I started. I mean, I've been drawing since I can hold a pencil. I was always attracted to drawing. But when I was around 8 or 9, my father contacted the National Cartoonist Society, which some of you here are members of, and they sent me a nice gift package. And I had all this great stuff that I used to trace and copy out of, and I don't have some of that anymore, but I still have 2 things I wanted to show. Actually, no, so it wasn't when I was 8 years old. It was a little after. I probably had to be about 13 from when this came out. I'm sorry. So I got an old issue from 1989 of Cartoonist Profiles here, which is just a fantastic magazine, great info. And I still go back and occasionally read it. And there's something on, who was it here? There was a big one here. Oh, Milton Caniff. So they had like his breakdowns and stuff. So it was really cool to just check out how he put his work together. And the other thing they sent me that I still go through today, I know it's not updated, was a 1980s edition of the National Cartoonist Society alum. And for those watching who don't know what this is, it's just little info and bios of the artists with some of their artwork or whatever. And this is how I learned about comics and cartooning and a lot. And I would copy out of this when I'd read about the different artists in here. 2 of the artists actually were some of my teachers. I studied under Tom Gill and I studied under Richard Rockwell, who were in here. So I thought that was just a cool thing to share, because these 2 might be the only things I still really have from my youth of cartooning, besides a few how to draw books. Now, Ed, what I wanted to talk to you about is something that you said you did. Yeah, you did during the summer. You were doing like caricatures and stuff like that, right? That was some of your summer work, right? Was that what you were talking about? Yeah, and you ended up
maybe.
Yeah. And you did caricatures professionally. I mean, not that that wasn't professional, but you mean like printed stuff. Now, caricatures are the hardest thing in the world for me. I can cartoon and I can turn someone into a cartoon character, but I can't caricature. And
Good.
I've always looked thank you. I've always looked at caricaturists as just amazing artists. And I've always tried to learn.
Take it.
What?
I'll take it.
Okay. And I'm sure you're very familiar, but one of my favorite documentaries I watch at least 1 to 2 times a year, The Lion King. You ever watch this one? I'm assuming.
I got a great story about it if you want to hear it.
I would love to hear it.
I was at the premiere of that movie.
Really?
I got to meet him a number of times, and I met him about 2 years earlier at a function in Connecticut. He was having a gallery show. That was the first time I met the art director of Mad magazine, Sam Viviano.
Mhm.
And briefly shook his hand. He had a handshake like an iron. He had an iron grip, kind of like I do now. He'd shake your hand, and if you know that this little old man would shake your hand, and he would just squeeze it like, oh my god. And about 2 years later, I went to the premiere of The Lion King, which was in St. Louis, where he lived. So they had the big premiere there, and I smoked cigarettes at the time. And I went outside to smoke and struck up a conversation with a woman who was next to me. It turns out it was Nina's daughter. Nina is his daughter that he draws the name into all the she says, have you ever met Al? I said, well, I met him a long time ago. He's not going to, well, let's go talk to him. So she brings me in and she introduced me to Al Hirschfeld. And I'm just like starstruck. He's Al Hirschfeld. And Mr. Hirschfeld, I met you a couple years ago in Connecticut. You're the illustrator from Milwaukee. And he doesn't talk like that at all. Terrible impression. But he remembered me. My thing was, he remembered me. And wow. I just watched the movie. It's an emotional movie. It's really cool. And then he puts his hand up. Don't mind my puppy chorizo fingers right now. But he puts his hand out to shake my hand real slowly. And I saw it in slow motion. And I went, oh, no. Here we go again. Shakes my hand and he does the iron grip. And it was just like, oh man. I expect him to, do the old, the Mighty Mouse thing.
Right.
And that was it. So, yeah. So I know that movie well. It's fantastic. If you guys haven't seen The Lion King, that was over 20 years now. So that movie is now, it's no longer new. There was a companion that came out with it. The first book online book.
The what? I'm sorry.
A retrospective copy of a book that came out about the same time.
Oh.
I think it was first held online, but I might be wrong on that. But, yeah.
No, I don't have that. So, but it was from '96. This came out.
Oh, that long ago. Wow.
Yeah.
No, I think I was living in St. Louis. Okay, I don't remember. I've moved around. I'm always on the run.
So let me ask you, just because I'm always fascinated by characters.
Go ahead. You had a question. Go ahead.
No, I said, since I'm always fascinated by caricaturists, besides Hirschfeld, who I think is an influence to everyone, who are your caricaturist influences? Who are you looking at? You didn't?
I didn't have any. Oh man, I have my stories the same as everybody else's. Mort Drucker, he was the man. Later on, I learned about Sebastian Kruger, German painter. If you don't know Sebastian Kruger, give yourself a Google. Pause this, go Google, come back. He's just a master. He's a master painter. Oh God, like Steve Brodner, Hirschfeld. I'm looking at my book. I have a small bookcase here that you can't see that it has like the stuff I reference a lot, and over there is a big bookcase that has everything else. Norman Rockwell. I'm a huge Rockwell fan. And yeah, I would count that in with caricature. Yeah, I don't have any unusual. Actually, I take that back. My time in the theme parks it was a very different era in the late 80s or early 90s. Some of the people that I got to draw next to were some of the best artists I've ever known. The guy that actually hired me is a dude named Tom Richmond, and yeah, give him a Google. But I would watch him and other people draw at the parks, and like these guys were like they were 20, 21, and I'm watching them live caricatures and going, these are this is amazing, you know. And so some of the best caricaturists I've ever known have actually been in the seat at the theme park. There's very few, unfortunately, that can make the leap from drawing live to, you know. But one of the guys that Tom worked with just a year or two before I came in the picture was Doug Mankey. You guys know that?
Sounds familiar to me.
I want to put comic book cards.
Okay.
Yeah. Doug Mankey drew caricatures at Six Flags Great America in Chicago, and yeah, it was it's a lot different world in the live caricature scene now, and there is a scene, trust me. But there's still, you know, it's a great stomping ground for people who want to
stomping ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a horse?
Yeah. Huge cat behind me. I've met a lot of fantastic artists just kind of cutting their teeth, drawing people live, doing caricatures. And I won't disparage that world at all. I think that, you know, but back when I was starting, there was a lot less of that. Now characters are Times Square, but we took it very seriously. You know, the characters that we did in the theme parks, they weren't cookie cutter at all. Every caricature was oh, speaking of Tom Richmond,
I was going to say.
Yep, every character that we did was a new drawing. I've seen a lot of live caricature artists who just do cookie cutter caricatures. Tom is correcting me. He says that Doug Mankey did airbrush T-shirts actually, so I'm mistaken about that. So, thanks, Tom.
and for those who don't know, I do want to say, for those who don't know, Tom does have a book on how to draw caricatures.
Yeah.
From what I've seen, and yeah, I want to. It's one of those books I do want to read and check out. Also, Joe Was. What?
I gotta say, actually, I guess I'll go back. You asked who my influences were. You know, it's fair to say that Tom is the guy that he's the first professional I actually saw draw. So he's probably the best live caricature artist there is. And to sit and watch someone like that just draw live characters, the people who are lining up for a souvenir at a theme park and bang out these drawings in just a few minutes. I mean, I was astounded. That completely changed my life forever. Tom, cover your ears. But holy crap! I mean, you know, I speak enough about that. Yeah, he has a book now.
And he says, "Aw, you're so nice." I just two quick comments for you, Ed. Brian Lennon says, "Hi, Ed. Love the framed Mad Superman cover. One of his favorites from his youth." And
Brian Lennon is a podcast host. I'm a big fan of. If people like music, he has a podcast called Permanent Record.
I'm sorry. Can you say it again? What's the name of it? I didn't hear it.
Podcast called Permanent Record. He's a friend of mine.
All right, cool. I'll definitely have to check that out. And I just wanted to say, Joe Was made a comment saying, I just want to have a whole episode of Ed doing bad impressions of other cartoonists.
How much time you got?
All right, let's move on to what?
Bad impressions? What?
I have a question for Ed.
Yeah, go for it.
The picture behind you, I don't know who it is, but is that a photo of a celebrity or?
Superman.
No, the other one, the woman, the black and white. No, it looks like, I don't know, either Heidi Klum or Stevie Nicks. I can't. Is it either?
That's Sarah Jessica Parker.
Oh, okay.
There's no reason for it. It's just kind of ridiculous. This picture is huge. It's about 4 feet. So it's a really big picture, and I was always a big fan of the show Night Court.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love that show.
Gary Anderson on that show had this ridiculous, enormous portrait of I think it was Jean Harlow behind him. I always thought that was just like, no one spoke about it. It was just one of those things, like, really? And so this came along, and I went, oh, I gotta put that out.
I see. Gotcha.
All right, let's move on to we'll start talking a little bit more about some of the comics. So any cartoon, any of the ones who draw the comics right now, if you wanna throw it, just say who wants to go first. So everybody basically mentioned at some point Peanuts was an influence, and I know for Don, Peanuts is an influence to him too. So you're welcome to answer. I want to know, just because I think everyone is a Peanuts fan, and Ed, if you have an answer, you can answer too. Who is your favorite character in the strip and why?
Go.
Kids, Bueller. Okay. I'll go. Snoopy. I'm when you're a kid, it was the 70s and 80s. The strip was Snoopy by that point, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But like I said, my parents got the Daily Herald. We didn't get the Tribune, so I didn't know there was even such a thing as the comic strip when I was a kid. I came to Peanuts through the TV specials. And when I remember the first time I saw Sunday Peanuts, because it was called Peanuts. Number one, what is that? And number two, underneath was the subtitle, "Good Old Charlie Brown." Where's Snoopy? And then the idea that not every strip was about Snoopy really threw me for a loop. So I had all kinds of identity, like, what is this? By the time I found Peanuts.
Mm-hmm.
Did Schultz ever explain why he called it Peanuts?
I know that
The
one.
syndicate, I think, made him.
Didn't they?
He wanted to call it Little Folks. He hated the name Peanuts.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
I think you're right. Yeah.
I think I had Ray Lago on a few weeks ago, and his wife, ex-wife, worked with Charles at the Syndicate. I think she was his editor or whatever the term is over there. And I think what he said was he didn't want to call it that. He, like you said, it was Little Folks, but the editor at the time thought Peanuts was like a name you give to little kids, and you just
a little peanut
or something. Yeah, like a little peanut or something. And Charles didn't, I don't think, agreed or liked it, but that's what he went with. Joe mentions, he says it was the editor who insisted on the name. Also, Joe mentioned, really like Sour Grapes. Looking forward to checking out everybody else's work. Maybe not Ed's stuff, but everybody else.
Oh, thank you, Joe.
Why I oughta.
Joe,
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that.
So anyone else want to talk about who their favorite character was?
I had it between two
Rerun.
characters.
Rerun.
Can I jump in? Is
Uh, yeah, Tim, you go. Then we'll go first.
Oh, all right. I had it between two. Is Linus and Pigpen.
Mhm.
Pigpen didn't say much, but whenever he was in the strip, all the dirt and stuff was constantly being animated and going all over the place, and I thought that was just neat. He always had like something going on. I know that sounds strange, but and then Linus, just the wisdom about him. The little kid with his thumb in his mouth with a security blanket, but he had this wisdom and this intelligence about him, that was really inspiring because I didn't have any of that.
Mhm.
So those are my two that I was really drawn to.
I have to actually agree with you.
What? Snoopy has appeared a couple times in my strip, so I do a lot of crossovers with that. Most recently, he's sitting on top of the UFO in his, Stop with Camel, outfit with the goggles and the scarf flying behind him.
I saw that one.
Oh, you like the one? So he takes over the ship that way because there's some kind of power, when he's on top of the doghouse, and he's able to now take over the ship that way. And then another popular one a few years ago was you see the UFO crashed in the ground. There's bullet holes riddled through the windshield, and taking off, you see Snoopy in the distance. So he just shot down another enemy pilot.
Right.
Francis, how about you? I know I didn't hear what you said when you said it so quick.
I was joking. I said rerun. I mean,
Cruel.
I will say that I really did like the 90s, just the art style, the way it changed, and just the way like you can't mimic that style. Like you can try, but like just the way, because it was also because of he had like a stroke or something, right? Wasn't that what it was? And so his lines were a little shaky.
Yeah.
I love the shakiness of that line.
Yeah.
Like that was it added something to it that like no other artist can, I think, draw Peanuts like that. But getting back to my favorite character, I'm going to go with Charlie Brown, and the reason why I picked Charlie Brown is because no matter how many times he fails, he constantly fails over and over again. Lucy pulls a football, and whatever it is, he always loses the baseball game. He never gives up. He just gets back up and he does it again, over and over and over again. So I don't know. I just always related to him. It's just like never give up, and even though you're wishy-washy and.
Don, do you have a answer to that?
I think the first character that came to mind when you asked was Snoopy, and a lot of that I think is tied into like a stuffed animal I had of Snoopy that I just carried around with me as an infant, and as I got older, it's so I had it with me so much, and it's just a really beloved toy of mine. But I completely relate with everything, like Tim, the wisdom of Linus. Well, there you go. That's awesome. The wisdom of Linus, and then Francis talking about Charlie Brown and his unbeatable spirit. But all of them have great appeal. But I have to say, the thing that I collected most was anything that had Snoopy on it. And I think I mentioned on Michael's show when I was on like a month or so ago, probably the most famous person I ever met was Charles Schultz, and I got him in his office. He was in Northern California in Santa Rosa, and I'm up in Eureka, which is about 4 hours north of Santa Rosa. But back in the 90s, when I was publishing a lot of comics, I networked with guys, and these guys had a licensing deal with Schultz, and my wife and I, we said, we're huge Peanuts fans. He said, well, we're actually going to fly out and talk to Charles about some deals, so why don't you come and join us? And so we actually got to go into his inner sanctum, and we met him, and then he was at the skating rink after that, and I was just like, I didn't even know what to say. This was like my idol, and my jaw was just dropped being in the same room with him. But he was really nice.
Yeah, that's great. I had that experience, jaw dropping and not being able to talk for a moment was with Sergio Aragones, who was an incredibly nice guy as well. But I had that little fanboy moment.
He's still alive. Is Sergio still alive?
Sergio, yeah, he's like in his 80s now, I believe. Correct? Yeah. And I've had the chance to meet him quite a few times. I remember showing him some work, and he told me that it was really good. I should send it to Matt. I sent it to Matt. Even wrote that Sergio saw my work and liked it, and they still rejected it. So.
I got one more Peanuts related comic I did recently. So I have Charlie Brown on the examination table. The aliens are going to do.
Oh, I know this one. This is a good one.
And you see the EKG machine, in the background, and the heartbeat, and then it's mimicking the pattern on his shirt. So
that's awesome.
People are saying poor Charlie Brown. His eyes are closed. He's in a
that's great.
Yeah. So some of them are a little bit morbid, and he's kind of laying there, but you don't see the shirt; it's covered by a blanket, and it's.
I like that.
Thanks.
Ed, do you have any you want to add, or because I know.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go say what you were going to say.
Actually, I have a Garfield thing.
A Garfield thing? Okay.
That works.
Cool.
I was always a big Garfield fan growing up, and I draw Garfield and all that. And friends with Jim Davis, and I was talking to him. And, it was kind of going back and forth, and I mentioned this book that came out in 84, 85 ish. It was called Garfield Hits 9 Lives. Anybody seen that?
I haven't.
I think I might have it somewhere.
Yeah.
Hold on, I think I have it.
Go and run.
No, I thought I would.
Hang on. So I said, yeah, the book was great because it was a series of 9 stories. Basically, Garfield. Yeah, that's the one.
There you go.
Francis,
Oh, awesome.
Francis, you're really the end of my story. 9 stories based on Garfield's 9 lives. Each one done by basically a different member or different team at the Paws staff. And I said, God, that book was fantastic. It blew my mind. It was so weird and trippy, And they says, oh, it's out of print. It went for 1 printing, and there was the reason it didn't go to a second printing was because someone it was some weird, like, they just kind of let it go. Basically, it wasn't a huge seller, but like that book should be on the shelf. I wish I had it. I cleaned out my mom's attic 2 years ago, and I thought I would have a box of all kinds of cool stuff when I was a kid. Did not. So Jim just mailed me a copy of it. So I got a copy.
That is awesome.
And, yeah, it's out of print, but he's still got these things floating around, which makes me wonder how many books are floating around Jim's house.
Great.
Signed and everything.
Wow.
Wow.
Mine isn't signed.
It's very, it's very, very dated. It's very 80s. There's a lot of airbrush and but it's really cool. It's this great book that I wish they would, reissue or maybe do an update or something.
Yeah.
He was like, he didn't have any interest.
Yeah. No, Garfield. That was one of those strips for me that I read, and I just always loved his storytelling pattern. Where he kind of it was always through the 3 panels. I don't know if he started that way, but when I remember like mid-late 80s reading it, I started noticing the 3-panel storyline that he would do. Always have that kind of blank in the middle. So that was something that always kind of was really cool to me. But I love that you have these great stories. I remember you told me after my interview with Brad that you were speaking to him, and when I believe I was talking with Brad about it, and I was saying how much I preferred U.S. Acres to Garfield.
Right.
And you said you were just talking to him about U.S. Acres, which is cool. Anyway,
an underappreciated strip.
Yeah, definitely.
He brought that back. Didn't they bring that back a few years ago? U.S. Acres.
No, it was animated. Animated series. I think it was either, if it wasn't in the Garfield animated, Mark Ebeneer.
It was a comic strip.
It would be bookends to the show.
Okay. Yeah, they were. It was. I don't remember if it was an 80s or 90s cartoon, but it was called Garfield and Friends. And I only remember this because it was on. It's on the Boomerang app that I have, and I sometimes.
But it was also it was a comic strip. It
was a comic strip first, and the books are so hard to find, and they're so expensive on like eBay and Etsy and all these things. I would love to see that reissued at some point.
I do have one somewhere, a U.S. Acres book. I'll probably have to disappear for 5 minutes to go find it, but
you don't have to disappear. You don't have to disappear. But yeah, no, I wanted that. That was the other thing. Like with Jim, I mean, and this is something that, and one of the reasons I read his strip first, it was funny. I always said, and I don't remember who I said this to, but when I read comic strips in the newspaper, I'd always read my favorite last. I'd go to the ones that I didn't like first. But I always enjoyed Garfield as a kid. But and I noticed this with a lot of the strips I like. It's always that clean line look that attracted me to those. Those were the cartoons. So Mort Walker stuff, Beetle Bailey, High and Lois, all those things, and Garfield. But I'd always read Garfield first because 1, I loved cats, and 2, I loved his his line work. Hold on, we got a comment here from Joey. He says, I do love what Ed has been doing with the Rube Goldberg stuff. He also does a great job putting his own spin on such a great legacy. Was Ed able to get the latest book done? When does it come out?
Oh, no.
No.
Oh, what time is it?
Awkward.
Yeah, I finished the last picture book in July. Now I'm on a series of chapter books. They're called little reader books. So it's for the next age group. I don't know how old the age group. So this book that I'm on now is a proper reading book. It's got about 120 or so illustrations peppered throughout. That's what I'm on now. I was.
Now, you can't work at all with that, right? It hurts too much to draw, or?
I could. If I wasn't such a baby, I probably could. Maybe in a couple days or so, I'll be able, because I'm still designing it, and I design on the Cintiq, which I have here. You know?
Yeah.
So I can probably make it work like that. For inking, like the final art.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody who can draw?
Nobody here.
Yeah, I don't know.
I got into comics because I can't draw. So I mean,
I do want to mention.
Thank you, Joe.
A couple of other comments. Brian says Fantagraphics did a great job with their Peanuts reprint project. So awesome to have a full run of strips printed on one shelf.
Those are fantastic. So good.
Yeah. Yeah. And Sketch says my favorite character is Charlie Brown. I feel him when the world is against him, and despite that, he doesn't give up on what he enjoys and tries to put on a smile. So very much like what Francis says, and he's one of my favorites too. But I've always been a Linus fan. I don't think I ever put my 2 cents in, but I'm not the important one here tonight. So
I do tear up during a Charlie Brown Christmas when Linus makes that speech.
Yeah.
Which I guess we're not seeing on TV unless you have Apple TV this year, right? None of those are. You have Apple TV?
I have it on DVD, so.
Yeah, you have Apple. Yeah, I have a Fire TV, Amazon Fire TV, but I have to get the DVDs. I've never owned them.
Hey, I was palpably relieved when I saw that it was available to Apple TV subscribers. So I'm not kidding. I was like, "Oh, okay, good. I don't have to go through any ridiculous scenarios here." Not that I would.
I bought a new year ago, so I got a year of Apple TV free with it. So I just kind of that until it's done. Watch Peanut Special and that Jennifer Aniston show. That's about it.
I'd like to hear what you guys think about Garfield. What do you guys think about Heathcliff?
I am actually much more of a Heathcliff fan because I like the single panel. That's me personally. What?
I'm leaving.
How dare you?
I actually have a funny story about that.
Go for it.
I remember I was first grade, and remember they had the Scholastic book club where you could order. So I liked Heathcliff because I used to watch. They had a Saturday morning cartoon.
Yep.
And I so on my Scholastic, I'm like, oh, Orange Cat. I'm going to order. He must be Heathcliff. I'm going to order that. And I ended up getting a Garfield book because I thought it was Heathcliff, and I was like, "What is this?" That was actually my first introduction to Garfield.
Yeah.
And Garfield, I think I was 6 years. So Garfield was like 6 years old at that point. Like he had been running for 6 years. And I actually was like, "Oh, I actually really like this. I think I like this better than Heathcliff." And yeah, I know, but.
Well, I'll just show you guys something real quick. I just took these off my shelf. These are all my Heathcliff.
Oh, nice.
You hate read those? You just go right through them and just can't stand them.
I've read them quite a few times. Some of them I bought. I had to rebuy. I got rid of some from my childhood, and some I had to rebuy. Actually, there's a Lockhorns in here.
I love the Lockhorns.
I love the Lockhorns. I got this from Bunny herself. So she gave that to me. I did a what's the word? An apprenticeship at a puppet company, and she was good family friends with the guy, and he knew I loved comics, so he brought me to her house and
Oh wow.
the studio and everything out there in Long Island, and it was gorgeous
Cool.
to see. That might be one of the one of the highlights, just seeing
Absolutely.
the building, the home there, and how like amazing it was put together. So
It's made out of the cobblestones from old New York City streets.
yeah, it's. Oh, I'm sorry. What'd you say? It was made out of the cobblestone of what?
The bricks on the exterior of that house are cobblestones torn up from old New York City streets.
Oh, you're
that
serious?
I remember her telling me how she molded, how her husband like molded all the pillars or something, that they to make sure they were all like perfect.
They built that house. Bill Hope played tennis with a construction guy in charge of tearing up the old cobblestone streets. And he was thinking about it one day. He says, "We have a warehouse full of these bricks. We don't know what to do with them." And Bill said, "I'll take them." So I don't know what something like, we'll just say like $5 a brick or something. And well, if you look at the house, you go, "Oh yeah."
Yeah, no, it does. Cool. It does make sense when you say it. I've only been there once, but it was something stuck in my head,
Right.
So one of the things I asked everybody to kind of think about when they came on was to kind of bring their own idea of some comics that they would want to talk about. Is there anything that you guys want to share? Anything you want to Oh, go ahead, Ed.
The last couple of days, I've had absolutely nothing to do except read.
Yes.
I've been reading. I've been reading the books that my friends have put out in the last year that I haven't had a chance to read. And I've gone through quite a bit. But is anyone? What is the first one? This is two. A guy named Mike Cavallero.
I know the name.
The Nico Bravo books.
I've seen them. I haven't read them.
My God, they're great.
Yeah.
I'm reading it, and I'm like, some of the books I'm like, all right, I got to get through this. I know this. I'm reading these, and I'm just going, oh my God, this is fantastic. Super fun. I think they're probably for, I don't know what the age technically is. It's perfect for me. And they're good, quick reads. They're fantastic. Highly recommend the Nico Bravo series. Okay.
That's great to hear. I love learning about the new stuff. I actually have something I do want to share. I do have to pull it off my shelf. I don't remember. I forgot to pull it off. But I'll get to mine last. I want to hear from everybody else. So how about Tim? Do you have anything you wanted to talk about?
What was the question?
Like I asked you, before we came on, if there was something specific you wanted to talk about, certain comics you wanted to bring that either inspired you, something that you loved, or just want to share.
Well, we talked about Jim Davis earlier, and I wanted to comment real quick that he's on my bucket list of people to meet. So if I can ever get my ass to Reuben Awards weekend and he's there, that'd be great. But I've had I've had quite a few people compare Sour Grapes to Garfield, and that's a big compliment to me because I'm really influenced by Garfield, and that's one of the strips that I grew up with. I mean, I remember how Garfield used to look completely different than what he does now when it first started out in the late 70s. So that shows you how old I am. And so, I over the years, I've followed the Garfield strip and seen how it's just grown and transformed into what this international icon now. And it's just been a huge inspiration to me, writing and art, and like I said before, and I've always said, with Peanuts too, I'll be the first one to say I'm not the greatest artist in the world, but combining my writing in with my drawing, it get that whole package, and that's what I've noticed with Peanuts and with Garfield. It's a whole package. It's not just the artwork; it's the writing. It's not just the writing; it's the artwork, and they complement each other, and that's important. And that's what I've worked on over the years. So, those two strips and those characters are what really propel me, to this day. So yeah, I'll stick an exclamation point on the end of that.
Okay. Brad, let's go to you.
I'm probably reading the same strips right now that a lot of folks are reading. The big one is for me, and I think for a lot of people as Wallace the Brave. That's on Go Comics. So if you haven't checked out Wallace the Brave yet,
that's a great strip.
Yeah, I really have to highly recommend that.
He lives in my state. Okay.
And he lives in Tim's state. So it is the real selling point, but I just didn't want to put that out there too soon. The other strip is Crabgrass, which I love, and you can find that on Instagram. You can find that on Go Comics. It's all over the place, but Crabgrass I love. And Next Door Neighbors.
Next Door Neighbors.
Andy is another one that I love. Yeah.
Who
So,
does Crabgrass, Brad?
what's that?
Who does Crabgrass?
Oh, Bondia.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Can
if
I
you look
say
him up.
about which one? Which one did you mention first? The
Wallace the Brave.
Yeah, that's that. I love the art style in that one there.
Yeah, it's wonderful, isn't it? I really enjoy. I love the backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the way he draws seagulls. I love the way that he scribbles in the what they call those things, balloons that we so frequently encounter in comics. Very rare. And I think so. I think those are three that really spring to mind right away. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to think, as far as comic books right now, I'm not really reading too many comic books, which for me is very odd because I have enough comic books to sink a ship, and I've been reading them as long as I can remember. Yeah. And then I think another thing that's been really exciting for me about comics right now are all the reprints that are coming out. I'm looking at my, King-a-Roo was a real notable reprint.
Volume 2 or something behind me, volume 2 or 3 or something.
I love King-a-Roo. Getting all the E.C. Segar Popeyes out there has been really good for me. And then Lil Abner and Bringing Up Father is another one that I dug out, which the Shmoo sequence in Little Abner is probably my favorite comic strip storyline of all time. But yeah, so.
All right, how about we move on to, we'll do Don next.
I have a couple recommendations. My friend Harold Buckles, who I met through Parody Press back in the 90s. He was kind of a small press guy, and then he got a job with Archie, and then he went to work for Mystery Science Theater, the reboot for Netflix. But he's got a strip on Instagram called Sweetest Beast. I'm not sure if
you got it.
Yeah, there we go. That's a good. But it's really nicely drawn, very cute.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, he's about he just launched this like a month ago, and he's got about 700 followers. But Harold's just a really gentle guy, really fun. Hopefully, you'll get to interview him.
I want to bring him on. I actually met him at a kids Comic Con in Philly last year. I have a little children's book or mini comic book he did of that character, and I've been following him. I read his stuff every time he posts. It's awesome. Fantastic stuff.
And the second thing I want to recommend is this hilarious book by a friend of mine named Keith Gleason called The Mighty Mascots.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah,
done by Alterna Comics, and I mean these guys are dirt cheap. It's on the old newsprint that we love, and it smells like old comics, but Keith and his his creative team have taken our favorite cereal mascots, characters of them, and made them into a super team. So he's got like this Captain Crunch guy, and then an alien that's kind of like the Quist guy, and you've got like a Snap, Crackle, and Pop guys that are robots and stuff. But this is a really fun book, and it's super, super affordable. Like 100-page comic is only $5, and you can get it, online or he's got a campaign going right now on Indiegogo, which is I think they do like 3 issues at a time, but he's got like cereal box promotions and stickers and all sorts of stuff. So highly recommend Mighty Mascots.
I've seen ads for that, like, or posts for it places. It's always interested me.
Yeah,
Keith's a great guy. I've known Keith for a few years now. I do his Plastic City Comic Con, and
all right, cool.
yeah, he's awesome. Yeah,
nice.
Let's move on to Roger. You have anything you want to promote?
So,
not promote. I mean, share like comics. We'll talk about them later.
So, posting my work on Facebook and Twitter, of course, and then I started posting some of my work on this website called Imager. I don't know if you guys have heard of this. It's called Imager. IMUR.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's like webtoons.
Yeah, like they do everything. They have like a section for comics, and they have sections for science.
Yeah, I think I haven't posted anything, but I've heard of it.
It's very heavy. And so when I first started putting my stuff over there, I noticed it was skewing younger, like maybe late teens, early 20s. So I started putting my work up, and then they would have the most snide comments and really hurtful. Facebook is very nice and people are very civil, which is surprising. And one of them was they said hashtag stuff that grandma forwards. That stung. So looking at their
big market.
So it's not so much one particular strip, but a lot of younger comics, I would imagine, they're putting their work up there, and they're very edgy, very funny, very strange.
Yeah.
And they're not following what I think all of us thought of our traditional, Sunday funnies. One is, I'm sure you guys have heard of it, Happiness and Cyanide.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it is so edgy, and they do some animated versions of it, Michael. That I'm sure you would love, and such a great place. And I kind of moved my work a little bit towards that edgier side because some people like the innocence of it, and brought them back to their childhood. But I guess for today's generation, they find it a little sappy. What I grew up and what I liked. So I'm influenced by these younger artists now. And what does well on Facebook does terribly on this Imager site. And what does well on Imager does very badly, conversely, on Facebook. So it's a huge different audience. Yeah. So that's what I would recommend is take a pop over there to Imager and see these very diverse group of cartoonists and comic artists creating everything. And some of them are just really hilarious and edgy and funny and contemporary.
All right. And the Happiness and Cyanide I've read. I don't know if I've seen their animations, but I've definitely read a few of their
really well done. The animations are really well done.
They have a couple of like animated comic strips.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Very simple figures, almost like stick figures.
Yeah, I find them really funny, Cyanide and Happiness. But it's not the kind of thing that I would do, but I enjoy those edgy comics. Like I'll go on Instagram and I'll read through those. But I try, like me personally, I try to keep my stuff kind of family friendly, I guess you could say. Maybe
that is not family friendly.
No, definitely not.
The stick figure one, right? Circle face.
Yeah.
Great.
Francis.
Hey, you should check out XKCD as well. That's if you're looking for stick figure comics, that's like the premier.
Yeah.
There's I see a lot of those stick figure comics now. Like that's
big.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's really popular. Yeah. Which I mean, I'm sure the idea takes a long time to come up with, but there's the
appeal. I think it goes back a little bit. If you look back at I'm trying to think of. but there's almost like a childlikeness, I think, to them. I'm not myself. I don't find it real compelling, but I get the idea behind it. The writing, like you said, is top notch, but it goes along. It reminds me of stuff like if I read Linda Berry making comics, it's very much like this is what the kind of comics you made as a kid, and that's like there's a purity to it, I guess, is the thinking of it. I think people respond to the DIY, the do-it-yourself nature of it, and I think that's why you have a lot of web comics right now that are that's what sells on the web is, well, I can do this too. And so it's a different kind of reader, it's a different kind of market, it's a different kind of comic, and it's not one I'm interested in, but it's very successful. Yeah.
Like Brad, actually, your Pirate Mike comics, I like the way they're so animated, like the expressions. I read it regularly. I've read it on Go Comics. I read it when I was in Sherpa. But I really do like the way that you draw, and like they look alive. Like Pirate Mike looks like he's alive, like he's moving, like watching an animated cartoon.
I hope so. I mean, I like Tom and Jerry. I mean, I want anvils dropped on people's heads. I want to put the characters through meat grinders, and I want 4x4s dealt liberally to everyone. I haven't gotten to that point yet, but that's what I want is squishiness. I want that squishiness so that if I ever do get to some good old-fashioned cartoon violence, they'll be ready.
Francis,
like Thanksgiving at my house.
What?
I'm sorry.
So, Francis, did you have any other books you wanted, or comics, or whatever you wanted to share?
I mean, I've been reading a lot of Instagram comics now recently, like Pirate Mike and Roger's comic. I read the new Kathy ones on Instagram. Scenes from Isolation, every single one of those that she puts out, and I mean, besides that, I mean, I still read the traditional stuff. I still read, Garfield. I still pull out my Calvin and Hobbes books. I really like the classic stuff, but I do like to see like what's going on, on web comics now, like what's going on Instagram, what's going on Webtoons, and now Roger, you mentioned Imager, so I'm going to actually give that a try and see what kind of comics are on there, because I don't read comics in the paper as much because they're just my comic section is now a page. The daily, it's like there's nothing there to read anymore. So, I go on to Go Comics and I can just read everything, and spend an hour or two just reading everything that comes out.
Let me ask you guys, what do you think? Who is reading our work? Because when we were young, we liked Garfield. So is it still guys our age that are reading these, this type of, or occasionally I see a younger person following me on Instagram or so on, and I'm a little bit surprised. A teenager or something like that, and they're reading it, And I think that these comics, like I mentioned on Imager, they are definitely skewing younger. So will those kids, when they become our age, will they look fondly on Cyanide and Happiness? The way we looked at him. Or are we stuck a little bit with our love for the past?
I think our attention is so spread out and divided that I guess when we were younger, it was there was 4 television networks and
3 when I was younger.
Yeah, and that's and then you could either watch TV or read books, and that was your form of entertainment. Now it's just there's so much out there. It's I think everyone has such a short attention span that they might jump to Cyanide and Happiness for 2 months and then jump to something else, and then they're on TikTok and Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and whatever else manages to come out.
But I think that's kind of good for comic strips having that short attention span, because it's a quick read. It's not something, one of the things for me that I loved reading comics, was the serialness of every day having the same story, or and sometimes just ending on a Sunday. They'd do a whole week of a story or something, or whatever it was. I like that serialness of it. I like the shortness, but it had me keep coming back. I don't know if kids today are going to keep coming back to things, but if they can see something like Rogers is a single panel strip, it's a quick joke, you're out. Francis, you do 3 panels. Actually, I think Tim and and Brad, you're all 3-panel basically strip artists for the most part, and so
I can't count to 4.
That'll do it.
So yeah, I think that it's things I feel kind of make comebacks now. Comics, in my opinion, books, print. We all know it's kind of dying, unfortunately. I'm a print guy. I like to have it. I mean, if you look behind me, I got tons of books all over the place. They're all comics. I love reading that stuff. And by the way, I do have books of Francis's work, and I do have books of Roger's work in my collection behind there. And I have gone back and I've read them. I enjoy doing that, and I like having the print. But I think kids today, growing up with technology, they're just on the phone, they're on things, and they're just quick. They want off. I don't know, if they're not on Instagram, we got to figure out where they're going. If it's that Imager site that Roger's talking about, you need to just find where the audience is. By the way, we have a comment. Mike is saying, I'm reading all your strips, me being 65 years old, just as an age demographic. So he loves all the stuff. I do want to, what do you got there? Dogman.
This is where the kids are.
Great book. Kids are all there.
He is selling this thing in millions.
Yes.
And it has that same kind of stick figure-ness that we were talking about, where it looks like a little kid could draw it.
Right.
Okay.
And he does have how to draw in the back.
Right. And he does. Now, why is this a big deal? Because kids, if you remember correctly, when we were kids, you had the how to draw Popeye. I'm not kidding you. This is my experience. How to draw Popeye. You draw a circle, and all of a sudden Popeye's done in frame 2. No, that's not been my experience. But so he goes bit by bit on how to draw a character. And, it's really basic stuff. It's also funny, and it's odd. Like, it's some poop humor in there. Well, the kids draw these with each other. They're like trading cards. It gives them personal interaction. It's like a club. They trade comics now. I think when it comes to where are the little kids, I think you're looking at books. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. When it comes to younger, what I call as the young people, the hip kids, I think you're looking at the internet. Now, are the hip kids going to have the affection for Happiness and Cyanide 25 years from now? I don't know, but speaking for myself, what happened is I liked comic strips, and and comic books, and that caused me to spread out and find other examples, like the historical examples of it, that I now have a lot of affection for too. So I think what might happen is those folks might come back to earlier strips later on down the road. But I think the direction right now, it's going to be interesting. I think we just have a lot of hip strips, and then the kids are showing up for this.
I have to say, I work with kids quite often, go to schools, libraries, stuff. I see usually like 2nd, 3rd graders with Dogman. I see more 4th, 5th grade with things like Big Nate. And then once they hit like 6th grade, they're on books like Smile and stuff like that.
Yes.
And that's kind of the progression that I see. And, me reading all these comics constantly and trying to be on top of things, and I still haven't even read a lot of the stuff I just mentioned. I try to get them to go on websites like Go Comics and read the strips. And just quickly, I know we've moved off topic. I just want to share the strip that I've loved for a very long time, and one of the reasons I go to Go Comics. Rip Haywire. Do you guys know?
Oh yeah, that's wonderful.
Rip, if you love not only just good humor, but like kind of that old Dick Tracy adventure type of style of art, like more of I think it's a more, stylized version of what a Dick Tracy strip would be. This is the
Dan Thompson.
Dan Thompson
and I were born on the same day, so I take credit for all of his success.
And Dan, I don't know if he's still drawing the strip. I know he started a new strip called Harley and's been doing that. It's about a cat and a guy that I don't know if the cat's named Harley, I forget, or the dog's, or the guy's named Harley, but they ride a Harley and they just. So I think it's what?
Love the art, yeah, with you.
Yeah. It's great stuff. Let's see here. We got Brian saying, I like that How to Draw Popeye story. As a kid, I had How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, which wasn't easy at all and always
I owned that too.
I didn't have what it took to get the invite to the bullpen. Yeah, no, I think I still have my book from when I was like 10 or 11 of How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. I still can't draw it their way. And but I'm sorry, what? I heard some.
I got a pretty fun Marvel story that can probably take me 20 seconds.
Go for it.
Do it.
Mark Grunwald.
Yeah.
You know that name?
Editor.
That's my cousin. That's my cousin.
Oh, really?
When I was growing up, at Christmas time, Mark would be there, and he would always be the one to give me like cool colored pencils, cool.
Wow.
And original art. He was also an artist. Everybody knows that he drew, but he would look at the work of the guys around him in the '80s and go, I'm just going to be a writer and editor." And so I was given some original artwork pages that I tacked up on my wall.
Hey, he had a lot of success. He had the Squadron Supreme 12-issue series, and then his run on Captain America was monumental. So that's really a cool connection.
Yeah, but I got to go to the bullpen in '85.
Oh,
And, I was already rebelling against comics, kind of, because I was Mad Magazine is all there is.
right.
And '85, I was like 11, 12 or something. We go up to Marvel Comics, and we're hanging out. We're having lunch with Stan the Man and all these other names. I'm never going to try to rattle off who I met because I'll probably get a few of them wrong, and you guys will definitely call me on it. And all I could think of was like, where's the Mad offices?
Oh.
Appreciate it till years later, and that's just
Well, that's fantastic. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, he died in '95 or so. But I still
he died young, didn't he?
Yeah, I still hang out with his widow here in the city.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, he was the editor with Marvel. I mean, his stuff when I was a kid, during my buying heyday of Marvel, was very heavily Mark Grunwald. I bought all his Captain Americas. So
when he died, he had in his will, he had a will, by the way. He was only 40-something. But when he died, he wanted to have his ashes dumped into a run of Squadron Supreme.
Oh, that's right.
Right.
But
Stan decided that in addition to that, they were going to have a commemorative poster made up.
Okay.
And so some '90s art. My camera's on the computer, so I can't walk it over there. It's right over there. It's a very '90s. Oh, I've got one. There's plenty of them made. There's Ashes in the Black. Yeah.
Wow.
And it is the most gaudy, hard to follow, hard to look at Marvel poster I've ever seen.
That's too bad.
It has all the characters he worked on, which is pretty much everybody but Spider-Man.
Yeah.
It is. It's over there. I have it kind of facing away from a drawing board. Neon and everybody's like the Hulk is just like it's so weird.
It was the '90s.
It was the '90s, yeah. I've had friends who really didn't know comic books look at it and they go, "Oh, it's this guy who was popular for a hot minute."
Right.
90s.
Yeah.
That's it.
Hey, Squadron Supreme had its heyday. That was one of my first drawings as the Marvel that I loved, was the cover where it's the Avengers and the Squadron Supreme, clashing against each other. I can't remember what number it was, but Squadron Supreme definitely had its moments.
I read a lot of those.
Yeah.
I didn't read them all. We always got comic books all as kids. There's that comic book, and I didn't really appreciate it until years later because I was just kind of becoming somewhat professional when he died. In fact, I asked if I could come out and work as an intern in New York in '94 or so, and he said, "Go get good at drawing. Become the best at what you do." And I'm still working on that. But not long after that, he died. I was like, "Oh,
yeah, no, there's not."
Yeah. So, yeah. Life takes funny turns.
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't come out to New York when I was 20. It would not have ended well.
So, let's see. I'm just going through the comments if I missed any. Ed, there was a comment from Mark Simon who asked if you wanted a copy of his memoir, Attacked, which he talked about when he.
Mark, I've got a wobbly table. I need a book that's just about yay big to. He's not here. Mark, I don't have his book yet, but I know about it. I should have it.
Yeah, he talked about it on when he was on the show with me, and I haven't had a chance to purchase anything, but it is on my list of books I want to get. It sounds like a fantastic. I mean, unfortunately, it's a true story about the bullying he went through, but it sounds like it's a fantastic read. So let's see. Anything else I missed? I don't think so. I think everything else is cool. All right. So we've been talking almost for an hour and 40 minutes. Normally I go for an hour, but we got a lot of you on. We're going to go a little longer if that's okay. If anyone needs to go, I just want to say it's okay if you need to go anywhere. I know it's early for Don still since he's out in California. Mark says he'll send it to Ed since he's nice to me.
Mark, when have I ever been nice?
So, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. No, so I was going to ask, does anyone need to go, or are you guys still good for a little longer? All right, still good? Okay, cool. So, what I was thinking that we would do next is we've talked about, Peanuts, which is I think everyone is the standard of comic strips for most people. We talked. Everyone kind of talked about their favorite stuff that they're currently reading, or recommend people checking out. I want to talk a little bit about your work now and how what you have, the path that you went on through these comics that inspire you. Because I'll tell you right now, reading Rip Haywire, when I started reading this, I don't know if it was when it first came out, but when I discovered Rip, a lot of his style kind of rubbed off on me when I was drawing, more like I kind of toned down that superhero style I was doing, and it kind of merged this with a little bit of Hanna-Barbera and stuff. What I want to know is the stuff that you guys do. Where, I don't want to say where is your style from, but what was those influences that you could see in your strip? And I know I've talked on those I've interviewed. You kind of said a little bit of it. We kind of touched upon it, but can you look at your work and say, "Oh my God, this is from this artist here." Like, if this guy didn't do this, I wouldn't be drawing like this right now. Can you guys pick someone or a couple of people? And then, and I know, Don, you said you've drawn a little bit. You're more of a writer. If you want to take this from a writer's point of view, you can do that as well. Okay? Take a moment, think about it. And
I have a theory
yes.
that most artists, given enough time, will end up drawing like Disney. So when I look at all the progressions, someone mentioned how Garfield looked much different than what he does today. His eyes got bigger, his feet got bigger, everything became, his teeth, became Disney teeth. And then I look back at my work from the early days and then what it looks like now, and I'm subconsciously moving towards that, clean Disney look, for better or for worse, and that is the largest influence we have, subconsciously, early on. It permeated all cartoons, from that point forward. So that's my take on it. That that Disney is kind of this overarching, silent, godlike, being over us.
Disney is everywhere.
A different world. I'm not really a cartoonist, so I think, I don't think I'm really qualified for this question.
But I mean, as an illustrator, as a caricaturist, you could look, at illustrations. You mentioned, Norman Rockwell. I mean, it's, you know, his stuff. I used to have things hanging up of his work years ago. I don't have it anymore because when I moved, I don't have those pictures. I lost those pictures. But I know I kept his work up for inspiration. I can never draw, illustrate, paint anywhere near what this guy could do. And thank you. But I always kept it because it was something I kind of aspired to, and wanted to try to emulate. I notice in some of my stuff when I just loosely sketch, I have a very Will Eisner-esque, even if it's not his style of drawing, that you can see Will Eisner influences in my work, mostly in my sketching, not in my inking. My inking will never look like Will's stuff, but when I sketch, I kind of have that like I can draw sad, pathetic people beautifully, and that was something Will was a master of doing. And I think when I draw sad people, I can kind of pull that Will Eisner out of me,
So my take on that is I've met a handful of artists in my day who say, "Oh, I'm self-taught." Anybody who tells you they're self-taught is completely full of it or delusional. Everyone brings a bit of stuff that they've seen, stuff that influenced them, stuff that affected them consciously, unconsciously. That shows in the drawing. What's going on in the art that absolutely comes through in what they're drawing. I mean, you can see bits and pieces of everybody I mentioned at the beginning. You can see bits and pieces of that, in stuff I've done, even stuff that's not in the same vein. Like I've done a lot of work that's not caricature based, not even humor based, but you can still see. I like to think you can see some Drucker in there. You can see Tom Richardson. You can see Sam Vivian, or even going back to Rockwell. It's all there. So, I think to narrow it down to a few is a matter of the artist picking out their favorites, I guess. I have a weird thing on Instagram. I'll be scrolling through and I'll come across some artists that I don't know how to put this lightly. I'll just go, unfollow. Yeah. I'm afraid that it's going to rub off on me the wrong way.
Sure.
Or like, I'll do that.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'm also not very bright.
No, but I have to agree with you about the self-taught thing. When people ask me, or when I teach, I have said, I have used the term self-taught, that I'm self-taught, but I think art is a self-taught thing. I could sit in a classroom and teach kids principles. I could teach kids, process, but unless they sit down and actually do it, they're not going to learn. And the inspiration, I've always said everybody's been my teacher. I've never met Will Eisner in my life, but I read his comics. I've seen his work, and I have studied it, and I've taken in elements from Eisner. I've taken in elements from, like I said, I love the clean line look of Mort Walker's stuff and Jim Davis. And when I look at those things, that's my inking style. It's clean. It's almost coloring book like, but to learn art, if you don't do it, you don't learn it. You can understand how it's made, but you can't do it. So that's when I use the term self-taught, that's how I mean it,
she taught me how to draw hair. Up until a couple years ago, I'd never met her, but I loved the way she drew women's hair, and I still, especially in book stuff, I find myself doing that.
No, it happens. So, anyone else? You have anyone you could pick, or say that this is a major influence?
I like to think of it as the question is, who am I trying to copy? And for me, the artist that I'm trying to copy is a child that is born between Charles Schulz, Jack Kirby, and Dick Ayers. My my ink line, if I could ever ink, have an ink line that looks like Dick Ayers from like 1962 Fantastic Four. There's an issue of Strange Tales he draws where the Iceman is on the cover and he looks like a pile of Dairy Queen that got left out in the sun. And I love it. You know, it's just one of those textures. So I think somewhere I'm trying to copy Jack Kirby, Charles Schultz, and Dick Ayers.
Nice.
Trying really hard.
Everybody, I'm getting dressed.
Brad, I actually reached out to Dick Ayers in his latter days, and he would actually sell commissioned pieces through my eBay store.
Oh, that's fantastic.
He had like an account through his his email account was like hooked up to like his TV or something. It was
He
like,
responded to me once. I
What's
just said, "Hey, Mr. Ayers, thanks for all your work," and he sent me an email back like, "Thanks, Brad."
he's a really nice guy. Yeah, he's very, very humble dude.
Yeah, I love his art.
Yeah, Kirby and Ayers are like I never drew like them, but I always Kirby like the Machine Man when he's like my favorite characters. Machine Man.
Machine Man's insane.
I could segue. I know that you asked for writing influences, but actually I just pulled out this page that I did like in '84, and I was really influenced by John Byrne and Terry Austin on the X-Men, and that's like even when I doodle today, it's like I really wanted to be like John Byrne and kind of have that simple structure, but with Terry Austin's awesome rapidograph inks and everything. So that's probably my biggest influence growing up was to be like John Byrne.
Yeah. His Alpha Flight, those first 12 issues of Alpha Flight to me are still a gold standard. I love those.
Yeah. I saw him back like he was doing like Raj 2000 back in Charlton backup store.
Oh, wow.
So like when all the registration on Charlton books were awful, but you could see like this guy's artwork was really different for the time.
How about Tim? You want to chime in?
Yeah, when I do Sour Grapes, it's a lot of the episodes. I think it's important to, or I like to, involve the reader, have them a part of the strip somehow. So, and I noticed that I'm influenced by that type of thing with Peanuts, and you know, a lot of times I'll have, you know, Aesop looking out at the reader and involving them, and you know, just saying, you know, whatever the punchline is in that. And I noticed that with Peanuts early on when I was starting out, that happened a lot, and so that's one thing as far as the way I draw it and the way I write it, that I try to do, not very often, but you know, enough that it's noticeable that that that's what happens in Sour Grapes. And my drawing, you know, I've just BC and Wizard of Idea, huge influences on me as well. And Peanuts, because it's so simple and so, you know, there's not a hell of a lot of detail in the backgrounds. If you notice in Sour Grapes, I hate backgrounds. I think we talked about that, Mike. It's just too distracted. I'm easily distracted, so I don't do a lot of that. So, it's where was I going with that? So, you know, I just wanted to point that out with one of the things that influences me and that I carry on to this day in the strip. So
Nice.
That's cool. We haven't heard from Francis. Right.
So I would say that well, when I was growing up, I was a big fan of Peanuts, so I copied Peanuts. Then I was into Garfield, so I was copying Garfield. And then my favorite animated shows like The Simpsons, came out, and I started copying The Simpsons and Ninja Turtles, and then Tiny Toons and Animaniacs. Then I got into like a little bit of an anime phase, so I was reading manga, watching anime, and so I incorporated that style into my comics because I was like, oh, I like the way they draw the eyes, and so I think now, my comics are kind of like everything from my first from Peanuts to now, just molded into one little thing.
Okay. Yeah, I find my stuff is very Hanna-Barbera-ish. A lot of people tell me so, and I grew up on those cartoons, loving them, and I think even though I love the comic strips, and like I always said, animation. I said in the beginning is where my cartooning background comes from. I had the crappiest Voltron flip books I used to make as a kid, and whatever it was, but yeah. So we're hitting the 2-hour mark, and I know I could go longer, and I could ask you a few more questions. However, I don't want to keep you guys from your night. I know some of you guys are in New York, like I am, and it's 10:30. I don't know if you guys have to go to work tomorrow. I don't, but I don't want to keep you guys. So what I'm going to add, I'd love to have you all back, whether it's in a group again, individually. And talk more going back. Yeah, I'm sorry, everyone except Ed. I don't want Ed back at all.
The bad influence.
Yes. But I want to just give you guys, we'll go one by one. Anything you guys want to promote within your comic, something you're working on that's not about you, because down at the bottom, everyone can find you guys on social media. But if you want to talk about your comic and promote that, give us a quick little pitch, if you could do it, like a little log line or a little pitch about the comic, so we can get people who haven't read it into reading it. And with Ed, let's talk about some of your books that they can find.
Much less interesting than you guys. I have 2 books next sometime, who knows, whenever all this business is over. But kids picture book, Goldberg. I don't even know the names of the books yet. Rube Goldberg, Silly Spectacular Sick Day Off School, and the other one is a chapter book that comes out about a month later, and that also has that name. But everything will be on my website, my Insta, and I'm easy to find.
Okay. Let's just go down the line. Roger?
I'd like to encourage folks to read the strip on Sherpa on Go Comics. I think it's I think if they see some traffic, maybe sometimes that'll influence them, to kind of get over that wall onto the real big boys side of things. So okay. I would encourage people to check that out over there.
Okay, the Gray Zone comic, guys. Make sure to check that out. Francis.
I've got a new Suburban Fairy Tales book that came out in September called Scared Sheepless. It's on Amazon if you guys want to check it out. There's an ebook version in addition to the print version. And I have a new Archie story coming out, Betty and Veronica, at the end of this month. It's a Christmas story.
Awesome.
It's Betty and Veronica Friends, issue 286. So they'll be out at the end of this month.
And Brad, how about you?
I think I'm actually starting a new adventure for Pirate Mike right now, so it might be a good time for people to jump on board. You can get it on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and then of course where I show it mainly is on GoComics.com.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what we're hearing is everyone go on GoComics.com for the most part. From everybody here. So Don, how about you?
Actually, Michael, I wanted to promote the book that we're working on, which is X-Force Reloaded. Actually have a screen share thing. Is it possible for me to try that?
Share? Yeah, just ask to share the screen, and I'll share it real quick.
Okay, is that?
There you are, Ed to stream. So
Yeah, this is X-Farce #1 was actually a book that I did in 1992 with Eclipse Comics, and we were spoofing Rob Liefeld's X-Force at the time. And this one wound up selling like 60,000 copies, which is pretty a lot, probably one of the best-selling books I've ever done.
Wow.
It was totally in black and white, and Ed can probably relate to my artist team. Their names are Bill Mouse and Bob Hannon, and they actually were working at SeaWorld as character artists, and this was their first published gig. They happened to know an editor, and so Eclipse kind of teamed me, Bill, and Bob together for X-Farce. So we're going to make this a 48-page full-color book, probably coming out the first quarter of 2021. And I met Michael through our colorist, Delphin Barrel, who is basically putting his lavish digital colors on most of these black and white pages. And Michael, if you ever want to share your, the sketches that you're doing, I think they're hilarious.
thank you. I'll do it in another show because I don't have access to them at the moment. But I'll be happy to show them. I love them.
Yeah, so that's coming out. It'll be a crowdfunded book, and we'll have different variant covers and incentives.
Cool. All right, let me remove this. Okay, and just come back to this to make it a little easier for people to see at home. And finally, Tim.
Hi.
Hi.
You can just go to sourgrapescomic.com on my website, and all my books are there. I have compilations going back to 2015, and I have a couple of coloring books involving Aesop and his pet cloud Ominous. That one just recently came out earlier this year, and so those are there, and you can see all that. Maybe the strip runs in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Texas, and California for now. And so if you're in those areas, you can see Sour Grapes running on a weekly basis. And if you live in a place that you'd like to see Sour Grapes run in your newspaper, let them know. Let me know. That'd be awesome. And everything else on my website, you can see, what papers it does run in, and there's other funny stuff. There's a picture with me and Ed and the other guys in the National Cartoonist Society, which was a lot of fun with Joe Staten and that. So one of the best days of my life was when I met Ed. So not sucking up, but it was. No, but seriously, it's one of the best days of my life when I met Ed. So, and those guys. So, yeah, all kinds of stuff.
You weren't a member of the NCS until then, right?
Not at that point, no. What's that?
Okay. I'm trying to get my timeline. Okay.
Yeah, we did a panel that was at Rhode Island Comic Con,
right.
And that's when I met you, and I was invited to do that. That was a big deal for me. So,
Yeah.
But I digress.
All right, guys. Well, I'm gonna if you guys have to go, you can take off. But if you can wait a few minutes backstage, I'd appreciate it.
Sure.
So I'm gonna put you guys backstage. I want to thank you all coming on. I want to say I had a lot of fun listening to the stories, hearing your thoughts on things. I definitely want to bring you all back on, whether it's kind of in a group or individually. And I know I say this a few times. It's always inspiring to talk to other cartoonists, other artists.
Yeah, it is.
It makes me energetic to draw. I know, the stuff I'm doing for Don, I've been having a lot of fun with. I haven't showed him updated stuff, but I've been having some fun stuff with that. And I've been working on bringing back my Wiz comic. And a lot of it has to do with this Get in Tune program that I started. And it's because of talking to people like you guys who, when I stopped the Wiz, I stopped it due to illness and stress, and I had to take a break. And I'm like, I'd like to go back, but I felt I just wasn't ready. And after doing this and talking to all these people, it's been a fantastic thing. And I have something like close to 40 plus strips written, and I plan to release it in the new year as a weekly. So
Congratulations.
yeah, I almost have my full year strips written. I'm going to start drawing in the next week or so. So thank you guys for, whether it was in the past, today, all the inspiration and stuff you've given me, and all the stuff you guys post, because I do look at it, and I do love it, and I do, even if I forget to hit the like button or something, it's believe me, I'm reading your stuff. All right.
Great.
So thanks again for coming on. I will I'll talk to you guys in a moment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, everybody. So for everyone who tuned in for the whole thing, awesome. For those who stayed for whatever they could, that's great too. You know, you can always come back and watch on YouTube and on Facebook. I want to thank again everybody who came on. It really was a great time for me. It really was an inspiring time for me to listen to everybody's thoughts on whether it was the comics or, you know, whatever it was. Next week on November 17th, we're going to have another group of people, but everybody here are independent publishers. You know, people like J.D. Calderon, J.M. DeSantis, who's been on the show, Ray Felix, who's been on the show, Tom Siaka, who hasn't been on but is Ray's partner, George Medina, Sam Vera, who's been on the show, who's George's business partner as well. So we're going to talk indie comics, publishing, all that amazing stuff. And I think we're gonna have a great show. So if you're into indie comics, you want to learn about making comics, all that, that's next week. So thank you for getting in tune with me tonight, and I'll see you all next week. Everyone, don't forget to check out their social media down there. Have a great night. Have a great weekend. Bye, guys.